But let's move on to Edmonton. And, the Canuck fans and Flames fans melded together in unity and commonality,
And pettiness.
and pettiness and laughter at Ken Holland as the Oilers acquired 38-year-old Duncan Keith for Caleb Jones, brother of Sept, and a third-round pick, which could become a second if the Edmonton Oilers get to the Stanley Cup final. And the Oilers also got another minor league player in this trade as well. Maybe I want to hear from you guys first before I give my comments. We'll start with Tyler on this. What were your thoughts on this trade? And then we'll hear from Sean and then.
Yeah, it's one of those moves where a team's in we gotta win now mode, and they're trying to do something to shake up the mix. Look, it's a risky move. I know it's been panned, critically. People don't think it's a good deal. They gave up too much, whatever. But do the Oilers really want to come back with status quo and be soft in the playoffs and be out early like happened this year? I mean, they have to do something. And Duncan Keith's a guy with a Stanley Cup pedigree, and he's tough and mean, and he should theoretically add at least some leadership to that group. I think that's needed. But at the same time, I mean, boy, when you're the team that really wants the deal more, this is the kind of outcome that you get, right? Like, people can sit here and say, how did they give up that much for Duncan Keith? Well, if you're Chicago, you say, well, we're not in that big a rush to make a deal. Yeah, if you want to make a deal for Duncan Keith, that's fine, but we need something here, right? Like, I think I saw Dustin Nielsen, I think it's TSN Radio, saying that the Hawks had no leverage. What do you mean? Like, they don't have to make the deal. They have 3 Stanley Cups in the last whatever number of years to rest on their laurels and patience with the fans. There's no like big pressure to get rid of, maybe a future Hall of Famer, a Conn Smythe Trophy winner, a Norris Trophy winner, if I'm not mistaken. Where's this idea that Chicago's trying to get rid of this guy, right? So that's why I think he ended up getting this deal that seems a little bit lopsided. Boy, the Oilers need immediate results for this. It's going to look really ugly. But as far as Canuck fan amusement, I mean, for me, it's just, the honeymoon's over with Ken Holland. The Edmonton fans and media have officially turned on him.
Okay, I want to ask a question, Tyler. Did the Oilers need to make this trade now?
Well, I think they had to do something about their defense. Yeah. They're probably going to protect Ethan Bear, I'm guessing, from the Seattle expansion. But he and I can't remember who his defense partner was in Game 4. If you've got it, Sean, help me out. But they didn't even see the ice for much of the third period and the 3 overtimes there against Winnipeg in Game 4. And then finally, when Dave Tippett had to put them out there, that was when the winning goal was scored. So it was a clear illustration that the coach doesn't have a defense that's deep enough to keep up in the playoffs, and they think that Duncan Keith's going to improve it.
It's not as bad a trade as people are making it out to be. Adding Duncan Keith is going to be big for players like Ethan Bear, a Darnell Nurse, Evan Bouchard, Philip Broberg. He's been fantastic for them. You talk with players like Ryan Kessler about the effect that Matt Sundin had on his career. Not to mention an underrated thing that I don't think many people know is it's a cap quirk with the stupid cap cap reclamation or whatever they're called, cap recapture. If Duncan Keith is crap and decides to walk away from the last year of his contract, because he's only owed $1.5 million next year, the Oilers actually gain an extra $3.4 million in cap hit on top of the 5.5 cap hit that they would lose because he retired. Like, it's ridiculous. It's stupid. It shows yet another reason why the cap recapture system is just absolutely dumb and petty, done by Brian Burke and Gary Bettman, because it makes absolutely no sense. But if Duncan Keith goes in and says, like, I'm done, I've made enough money after this season, I don't feel like I can add anything more next season, they actually gain an extra $3.4 million towards the cap than another team would.
Yeah, and for Keith, if it's true as it's reported that he wants to play in Edmonton because of the proximity to Penticton where his family is, then, I mean, it's just too tempting for them to not try and make a deal right there. I mean, how often do we hear free agents really say, I want to play in Edmonton? You know, and a guy with his track record and name power and all that. And like I said earlier, I firmly believe that the organization feels that more leadership is needed. And so those are the kinds of things he brings, even if though clearly at his age, he's not what he used to be. Just going back earlier at the defense partner with Ethan Bear was Slater Cuckoo. And those two hardly saw the ice when they were up against it there in Game 4 against Winnipeg. And, you know, as I said before, their defense was not deep enough.
Yeah, to me, I'm with Sean. I don't think that this is one of those situations where everybody feels like they are an expert because, you know, you have to win the deal, everyone. You got to win the deal. And there's no reason, for the love of God, that, you know, with the leverage that you only had 4 other teams possibly in this in Western Canada, which would have been Calgary, Vancouver, Edmonton, and Seattle, that you couldn't have asked the Chicago Blackhawks to hold on to some cap money. I don't even think that is a legitimate argument. There were no hockey insider that I heard said that was even a remote possibility that would have happened. Like, nobody with the inside knowledge that would have known that said, yeah, Holland missed out on that at all. Actually, everyone said.
I heard Friedman say that. I think he said that he thinks that it's a bit of a miss on that, but I don't think it's that big of a miss. I think
no.
Yeah.
Okay. Other than Friedman, who I do respect, don't get me wrong, but most others that I heard said that I don't think that was a possibility. Caleb Jones, brother of Seth, wasn't even, you know, in that playoff with that weak depth with Darnell Nurse. He played 40 minutes in Game 4, right? Caleb Jones was a healthy scratch.
That's what's funny about people losing their minds over what they had to give up in this deal. Like, I mean, Caleb Jones is what? Like, no disrespect. Like, it's not like they're giving up Darnell Nurse plus a draft pick.
Like, if you were giving up a higher level prospect, then I can see the argument more that you could have had them hold some cap space. But Duncan Keith played 23 minutes a night last year with the Chicago Blackhawks. You can make all the arguments in the world, and you can draw, like, I could draw a graph. I'll draw a graph here right now. I'll draw a graph. He did some of this.
It's always good when the props come out.
Yeah, like this. Okay, this is the graph. Okay, he played a little bit like this, and then he went and did this, and then this, and then this. Can I tweet this out? Is this one?
Yeah, that's better than my artwork.
Yeah. So, but you know what? He also didn't have a Jonathan Toews and a Kirby Dach in front of him last year that he could play with. Mm-hmm. And this year he's got a Connor McDavid and a Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. He's also got a Darnell Nurse in front of him. And you, again, I know he's 38 years old. I get it. I totally get it. He's old. But that guy, Duncan Keith, is a warrior. Mm-hmm. Duncan Keith is a guy. He's an absolute prick. And remember what he did to Henrik Sedin?
It was Daniel, but yeah, we remember.
Right?
Yeah.
He is not. I think what people are missing is what Wayne Gretzky said. There's 3 levels of play. There's 3 types of games in the NHL. There's regular season. The Oilers have figured that out.
Yes.
There's the playoffs. The Oilers have not figured it out. And I think that you bring in a Duncan Keith because, yes, he's 38, but there's a certain level of maturity that he brings with this team that they are sorely lacking.
Yeah.
And it is so hard to grab that. And you can make all the argument, well, you're paying $5.5 million for bringing this in. You're not going to be able to get a free agent. They're just not going to come to Edmonton. They're not coming
cheaply. Not any cheaper than that. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's funny, like we see this with the Canucks fan base too. Like people are all over Tyler Myers all the time. In the past, I was one of the guys that was all over Alex Edler all the time. It is somewhat fashionable to crap on defensemen. I guess that's just not as glamorous a position, and so when you see a deal like this, it's just harder for the average fan to sort of see the tangible benefits there. But when you don't have reliable, experienced, poised defense, it really shows its ugly head at critical moments, and that's what happened in the playoffs last year. I mean, the other thing too is, where are we? We're defending the Oilers organization. Is there like the full moon out here in Caltown tonight, or what's going on?
The thing with defense is that their mistakes are highlighted big time. Every time they get walked, every time they make a mistake, they make a bad pinch. It's highlighted because it either creates a scoring chance or a goal, and they could be really good for 90 to 95% of the time, but people focusing on the bad.
Yeah,
and I don't want to get too. I still don't feel comfortable with the way that these public analytics evaluate defensemen and defensive play.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never felt it just doesn't feel like it does a good enough job, because I think defense is a lot more team based more than anything else, and the game is so fast that even if you're the best skating defenseman, you're going to get walked at least 10-15% of the time.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is, and you have to deal with the good and the bad, and I think you have to find a way to look at everything in moderation, and figure out who can fit the best. And it's still a risk. It's still a very risky trade, because even if it doesn't work out and he still plays the 2 years, that's still 5.5 plus on your cap for the next 2 years. That could really hamper what you can do, what Ken Holland and the Oilers can do to fill up that roster, especially up front, because I felt that their defense was on the right track. They've got Evan Bouchard coming up. They've got Philip Broberg coming up. They've got Ethan Bear starting to step up and become a good player. William Lagesson, watch for him. Like I really think that they've got some pieces on the blue line that can, with even learning from Duncan Keith, could really help. Go look at Calgary. Like I bet you the development of even Noah Hannafin this past year, and I think you'll see with Valimaki, Anderson, and Connor Mackey as well, with having such a good veteran presence in the Chris Tanev. I think you might see that in Edmonton with Duncan Keith. But at 5.5, that's tough, because what else do the Oilers need? They need depth up front, and they need it bad. Like they do not have anything up front outside of the top two, really. Yeah, Nugent Hopkins is good and plays well, but he plays with one of them all the time.
At least it got him affordably.
Yeah, they need to find a way to make a third line that can actually be comfortable putting out, let alone a fourth line.
Yeah.
So that's really going to be the question on whether or not this was worth it, is if they can still find a way to build out that roster and that forward group going forwards.
Yeah, I'm not like, look, I'm not saying that this is the greatest deal of all time, but like I think some people are putting this in Peter Chiarelli category, and I just don't see it that bad.
No, it's not. It's not at the level of desperation like a number of the Chiarelli moves were towards the end of his tenure. No, it's not like that at all. I don't know. Again, like I said before, easy to crap on defensemen. Probably people just don't like Duncan Keith for playing against him over the years. And there's always this obsession with draft picks. Like I get the angst over trading away first or second round draft picks, but third round draft picks, like, come on, it's not something to lose sleep over. Yeah, it is an asset. You can't just throw them around haphazardly like we've seen with, say, Toronto. But I mean, the whole sky is falling reaction is a bit much, I thought.
My other thing with this is just, and maybe it's because I'm in a certain age category that this hits me a bit more, but I'm really tired of starting to get really annoyed at the attacking the older athlete. Yeah, I think this is starting to become a bit bullshit. Tom Brady is 43 and still playing. Timo Solani played it into his 40s. Jaromir Jagr is still playing, by the way. There's a connection with Jaromir Jagr and the current Stanley Cup finalist. Mm-hmm. Wayne Gretzky probably could have played into his 40s. There are athletes that are able to play at a high level and are older, and it's just this whole mystification that you need young players to be successful. Of course you need young players to be successful, but you also need a little bit of maturity as well, and that's where I think a Duncan Keith, a Mark Giordano, Chris Tanems, those older players add that value to it. Now, it becomes a question for sure of how much you pay them and all of that. For sure, I totally agree with that argument, but like to just dunk on them because they're old, which is a lot of what this argument was, I think is bullshit. I think it's a complete bullshit argument.
We see it over and over in all sports that the teams with a lot of veterans are the ones that end up being the last ones standing. And for whatever reason, like a newer generation of fans just doesn't seem to want to listen to that.
Yeah.
I remember going through this, I think might have been partway through the season, and looking at the average age of the top of Stanley Cup winners and finalists. And it's not as young as I think a lot of people think it is. No. Yeah, you had a couple really young teams with Chicago and Pittsburgh, but the rest of them have all been sort of in that 25 plus. And even like you look even like Boston in 2011, they had Marchand, but they still had Char was still
Mark
Recchi. They had Tim Thomas was their starting goaltender. Don't forget that. Like it's you have to learn how to win